Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Sanchez. I'm the program coordinator at the Sandy Spring Museum. And before we start this evening's program, I have a brief statement that we read before all of our programs. During these very difficult times that we have experienced as individuals and as a country, Sandy Spring Museum too has experienced challenges grappling with the role we play in a system that benefits some at the expense of others. Sandy Spring Museum stands firmly with those fighting against the racism, structural disadvantages, and systemic injustice that have oppressed Black people in the United States for hundreds of years. The United States was built on discriminatory practices that were codified in our legal system, beginning with the dehumanization of Native people, followed by enslaving Black people in bondage as property for the financial benefit of those of white European ancestry. Sandy Spring Museum stands on land that was once a plantation where Black people were enslaved. We recognize that the museum is the beneficiary of a historically unjust system. We are committed to working toward dismantling systems that perpetuate racism and discrimination in order to build a just and equal society. And I would like to introduce Gabby Mendick, who is the juror of the wonderful exhibit, Makers Among Us. Though Gabby Mendick spends much of her time painting and creating, her greatest passion is for building community through art and music. Gabby received her BA in Film and Media Studies from Tufts University in 2017, and since then has explored her interests working at community arts and music organizations. So take it away, Gabby.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming this evening. I'm really excited that I was able to put together this group exhibit at the Sandy Spring Museum of 8 young emerging artists. Everyone is between the ages of 15 and 25, but so talented you wouldn't know it if you just saw their artwork, that they were so young. So tonight we're going to hear from 3 of the artists, and each artist is going to talk for about 10 to 15 minutes. So if you have questions, feel free to type them into the chat, or you can wait till the artist is done speaking and ask them at the end. And also, if you want to go ahead and put yourself on mute while the artists are talking, just to not cause any distractions, then if you have questions afterwards, you can take yourself off mute and ask them out loud if you want to. And also, if you're local to the Sandy Spring, Maryland area and haven't visited the exhibit in person at the Sandy Spring Museum yet, you definitely should come see all the artwork on the walls in person. The exhibit is going to be up through November 20th, and the museum's open on Fridays from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's social distancing, so you have to bring a mask, but not many people will be in the museum at a time. So you can RSVP to come see the exhibit in person at sandyspringmuseum.org. And yeah, so now we're going to hear from Mariah Gugel first. If you want to go
Great.
ahead.
Thank you, Gabby. I want to say first, thank you for organizing the show. It's been a great experience. So for my little portion of the evening, please feel free for chat throughout my talk. It's going to be very loose. But I'll just start by a little introduction. My name is Mariah Gugel. I am a recent graduate of the University of Maryland Art Program. I'm holding on to saying recent graduate. I'm still within a year of my graduation, so I'm going to still say recent grad. I live in Olney, so just up the road from Sandy Spring, and this was my first experience showing in a gallery or a museum, besides obviously at school. So I'll just buzz through my little artist statement. I was rereading it tonight, you know, I don't really remember what I wrote, but I would say generally my work has recently been exploring the exchange between figure and environment, kind of thinking about family history, communal history. So a lot of my paintings that are in the show are figure-based, and they are from old family pictures that I have cropped in and blown up. I think I also experiment a lot with color in my painting, intersection of warm and cool tones. Again, I work from photos most often. I used to work a lot in botanicals and just nature pictures, but I'm moving in the future, I think, towards figurative work. That's what I'm most interested currently. So I'm gonna sneak a peek at Gabby's questions that she sent us. I think being a young artist does present some advantages. I think mainly the advantage is that there are low expectations, that you are certainly allowed to try and fail just because you're young and it's your first go around. A disadvantage that I definitely feel is that it's difficult to get your work seen. It's difficult to get your work noticed. You know, plugging away on Instagram is not very gratifying, but it has been awesome to be shown in Sandy Springs. So I thought it was an awesome experience. My creative process is pretty loosey-goosey, I would say. Since graduating from college, it has been a process trying to relearn how do I come up with an idea on my own. You know, you're just used to being handed a prompt and saying, go do it. So my creative process since graduating from college has been a little bit different. I feel like I have taken a couple steps back in relearning how to paint, kind of going back to basics and still lives and found object paintings and drawings. So my creative process recently has been kind of on a standstill. I just started working as a art teacher in elementary schools. So my painting has been on a little bit of a pause for the past month and a half, 2 months, but I'm hoping to get back into some daily painting in the near future, and hopefully exploring some more with my figurative work. I think working with kids and hearing all of their ideas has definitely spurred some more ideas for my future work. So that is basically my about me. I can show some work. I have a couple paintings behind me that were just recently, like this summer work. I've been working pretty small recently just because moving home, trying to conserve space, trying not to, you know, stretch giant canvases or giant panel boards in my basement. So I've been working small, working with the space that I have, but I would hope to go a little bit bigger soon. So if there aren't any questions, I'm going to hand it back to Gabby. Oh, what are some artists you look at? I've been looking recently at an artist that I found on Instagram. I think his name is Mark Tennant. He does a lot of figurative work, a lot of like genre paintings, which I really enjoy. Some other artists to look at. Now, this would have been a good question to prepare for. I like a lot of bring a favorite work closer. Sure. So this was a painting that I did maybe 2 months ago. My neighbor was showing some photos of a trip to Sweden, and they were in a cabin or a really cool lodge eating an kind of old-fashioned Swedish breakfast. So my process with a lot of paintings that are based on photos is just scanning it or zooming in on my phone and cropping in kind of tightly. I feel like that's what I'm most interested in, cropping in like that. Thank you.
Mariah, can you show us some of your other, just bring some of the other paintings closer and show them?
Sure.
They're small enough.
So these have all been recent paintings. Like I said, kind of going back to basics and just trying to keep it quick and light, not getting bogged down in a huge painting. Just little still lives, a cat painting here or there. Trying to challenge myself in limited palette and, you know, like a 40-minute painting. But for a while I was doing the daily painting, wake up, have a cup of coffee, and try to finish something before you go to bed. That was my unemployed kind of process. That was my work day. And I found that pretty valuable. I was also working for a while on portraits, doing copies. It's something I'd like to do a little bit more of. I think it helps you get your feet back in if you're feeling a little stressed about getting back to art. So yeah. What was the most important thing you learned in art school? I think probably the most important thing was just like fail. Try and fail. If you tried, you'll learn something. If you fail, you'll learn something. I had a couple of professors that really emphasized that, and that was helpful to just be like, I have one idea and I'm just going to run with it and see what happens. So that was the most valuable thing I think I learned.
In a lot of your paintings in the exhibit, and also you were mentioning how you like take a photograph and zoom in, so it's like parts of figures and sometimes the heads are cut off. And I saw from your last painting that's not because you don't want to paint faces and do the details, because clearly you're capable of doing that. So why do you do that with like the cutting parts of things off or zooming in photographs?
For a while I did do it to purposely avoid faces and hands. So I have been trying to approach some portraits. I do definitely find portraits intimidating just because of likeness. Like I know it's not going to look like who I'm trying to paint. But yeah, I kind of do the whole disembodied body part a little bit, arms running off the edges. I think it's kind of about uncomfortable space, you know, hands moving in, body parts moving in. It's kind of a non-existent, kind of freaky thing, but it's still, when I think about a lot of the photos that I'm working off of, like they're comforting photos. So, depends on who's looking at them.
Yeah. Interesting. Also, I was wondering, so do you like not having prompts and being out of school, or do you find that challenging and kind of wish that you still had someone directing you?
I definitely find it challenging. I was very grateful to basically, as soon as I graduated in December, I started talking to you about the show, which was a great impetus to start or to have to make some art and come up with my own prompts. Um, Outside of that, I struggle. Like I was going back to daily painting, still lives, that sort of thing, waiting for inspiration to strike. I definitely feel like I need something to act on me before I act on it, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. Are there any either new mediums or new subject matter that you want to start exploring next?
Um, I would like to go back to a little bit of drawing. For the past like month or so, month and a half, 2 months, I haven't touched paint. I've just been doing, pencil with my classes. So I would like to go back to some graphite stuff, maybe take like a figure workshop, at least in a Zoom call or something. Um, Bump back to some drawing practices because I do feel a little out of shape with my drawing skills. In terms of subject matter, I feel like I would like to do some more kind of family-based, like old photo-based paintings like I did for the show. I only did 3 or 4, so I'd like to kind of maybe expand that into a larger series. So I have a question from Allison. What do you personally or emotionally get out of painting? I half of the time find painting to be frustrating and the other half to be a release, a catharsis or something. So it depends on the day and depends where I am in the painting. The first couple days are always fun and loose before it gets down to the nitty gritty. So I feel like that's why I enjoy painting, because the initial process is fun and exciting. And I think emotionally at the end when you see a finished product that you don't absolutely hate, that's really rewarding. And especially to be thinking about what significance a painting has to you and to complete it successfully is really rewarding. Thank you.
Lastly, can we see that the painting with the portraits a little bit closer up?
Sure. Let's go one by one.
Okay. Can you tell us about each of them? They are.
So this was a Holbein the Younger or older, hard to say. This was, oh my goodness. I told you it's been a while. The name is escaping me. It's been a long day. I've been on Zoom since 7:45. This was a Cassatt painting, and I was attempting to start painting it upside down and then switch halfway through. It didn't quite work out. And then the last one is the same artist as the lower one. So it was just like a 4-day exercise. Find some paintings that I like and try to get a kind of likeness.
Yeah. Wow, those are really amazing, and they look cool on a canvas together.
Yeah. I was like, I'm not gonna cut them apart. I'm just gonna leave them.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Does anyone else have any more questions for Mariah at the moment? You can also, feel free to put them in the chat or ask them at the end of the talk. But if not, do you have anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. Thank you for coming. I hope you come see the show.
Yeah, you have to come see her paintings in person. The museum, the big ones, are really impressive and amazing. All right, in that case, up next is Grace Roach. All right, Grace, if you wanna.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Grace. First of all, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Gabby and the Sandy Spring Museum for putting this all together. It's been a really cool experience. So my name is Grace. I'm in 10th grade at Sandy Spring Friends School. And I'm super excited to be here tonight and to kind of give you an insight to my art experience. So I like photography. That's what I think I'm the best at. And I started doing photography in 6th grade when I found just like one of those little box cameras in my house one night when I was really bored. And I thought it was just so cool that you could just like take a picture of something so ordinary, like a wall or something, and do it in a way that made it look cool and interesting. Granted, I don't really think that those pictures did look cool and interesting now, but at the time I really thought they were amazing. So I continued to take photos and learning about different techniques. And in 7th grade, I was able to take a photography class through my school. And we learned about film photography and digital photography. And I think that was really awesome. And I'm really grateful that I got to have that experience as well, because I feel like film photography is such a like lost art. I don't know if that's the correct wording, but it's not a huge thing anymore. Not that many people really do it or know about it or know how to do it. So I feel like that's super cool that I'm able to do that. And I really loved taking a photography class at school, and because it was just such a great way to have fun, to be creative. I never really was great at art, other arts, and so it was really cool to have something that I could be creative in, and do it in a way that I thought I did pretty well. And it was a great way just to like hang out with my friends, but also be learning a lot. In between 7th and 8th grade, I took a photography class as well, and I just learned a whole bunch more. In 8th grade, I took another photography class through school, and 8th grade was also the first time that I entered the Scholastic Art Awards, and that was a cool experience. I did not win anything, but I think it was a unique experience and a good experience for me to have, even though I didn't win anything, because at the time I was kind of on a little bit of a high horse, because I had won like 3 out of the 4 best in shows or something at my school competition. And I don't think without losing something I would have realized like, oh, I still have more to learn, which obviously I did. At 14 years old, you do not know everything about photography. So I'm actually really grateful that I didn't win anything, because I was able to then like kind of have a good space to grow and learn a lot more. So in ninth grade, I switched schools and I started at Sandy Spring Friends School. It was kind of a crazy year last year, but I was really grateful to have photography with me throughout it, because it just kind of kept like at least one constant. Um, and I grew a lot more last year, I think, because we started to have like very specific photography assignments. Previously, it'd been like, okay, shoot X amount of photos over the summer, and then throughout the school year, we will like learn how to edit them and learn how to do the film process. That's what my other classes were like. But last year, they started to become more like, okay, you have 2 weeks to shoot 100 photos that like has to deal with this specific theme. So for example, is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Let me pull it up. We had a assignment to take photos at an abandoned building, something I probably would not have done previously, like without the push to do that. And so I was really excited to do this, but it was kind of a crazy experience. We got lost like 17 times trying to find this building, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's like this huge fence over here that we had to scale to get to the photos. So I never would have taken any photos like this or this one without that push of like a very specific assignment to do this. So that was a really cool growing experience for me, because I felt like I was expanding my horizons of like what specifically I can take photos of. And then on top of that, like I got to spend a fun day with my friend. So I think that this last year in school was a really great way for me to learn. Unfortunately, when COVID hit, things got a little bit more complicated. And I was feeling just kind of unmotivated and not really excited about any of the photos. I was working on a school project all about like cancer patients and cancer survivors and how it's like they're more than just cancer. And it just felt like, since it was just such a scary time, I mean, it's still kind of scary time now, but since it was so scary at that time of like COVID and we didn't really know much, like it felt like at the time, like that was a big part of their identity, because, if you're having cancer treatments, you're more high risk for COVID. And so it just kind of was really difficult for me to motivate and do stuff. And I just felt like I kind of fell away from it for like about 4 months. But that's what I really like about photography, is it's like, it's not like that hasn't happened to me before, but if I feel like I need to take a 4-month break, or like I just can't motivate myself to do it, like I can always come back to it and always like grow more. And that is something that I really like, that no matter how long I'm away, I'll always find my way back to it, and find inspiration from someone or something. So that's kind of a summary of like my photography journey. I hope to learn more about like post-production, and like taking a good photo. But that is a good segue uh, to my like creative process. So I'm just going to talk about that quickly, and then I'll answer that question. So for me, I'm usually a very huge planner. I have not one but two planners. Like I love writing things down. I love planning things out. But when it comes to photography, I don't really think I'm the biggest planner. I just kind of have like maybe 1 or 2 photos in my head, and then as the shoot goes on, I just like kind of do things differently if I feel needed. So I think that is maybe, I don't know, I think that's an interesting thing for me since I am like such a huge planner. But I think it's kind of cool to just like go with the flow because usually I don't do that. But as far as like post production and like editing tools like Lightroom or Photoshop, I tend to not want to really like alter people's like faces or appearances because I feel like that's kind of deceiving and not really accurate of what humans look like. Like I wouldn't go into Photoshop if like I just took some portraits and somebody has acne or something and like Photoshop that all out because we're human beings. Like humans have acne, and I think it's kind of, I don't know. So that's not really what I like to do. I like to focus more in post production on like fixing lighting or if there's something distracting in the background. So that's kind of what I mean by editing. So yeah, that's kind of my process, and I'm really excited to see where else I go in photography, and it's just a really big fun thing for me to do, and I really like editing. I think it's relaxing and interesting, and I really like my two favorite things to take photos of are people and nature. So yeah, that kind of wraps up my spiel. Um, Oh, there was a question. Do you prefer to work in black and white or color? I don't know. I really like both of them. I think at the moment I would have to say color since I don't have access to a dark room or anything right now. Um, but I really like film photography because I think it is like, I know this like secret about photography that not that many people know. So I found that really interesting. And I also feel like I have to like focus a lot more on taking the photo if it's in film because it's like, okay, is this worth wasting one of my 36 photos or should I move on? Whereas with film, you can just kind of, sorry, with digital, you can just kind of shoot away. And if something's bad, you can edit it out. Am I interested in any particular art colleges? I'm kind of taking things one breath at a time, so I'm not really that far ahead yet. So no.
What do you like about taking pictures of people and nature, about each of those separately? Or, yeah.
Yeah, I think that as for people, I feel like a lot of the time there's a lot of like negative talk about your appearance, whether it's like self-talk or from others on the internet. And so I think it's really cool and nice to like be able to like take a bunch of pictures and make someone just feel really good about themselves. Because I think everyone deserves to feel good about themselves. So I think that's why I like taking pictures of people. And then as far as nature, I think the world can look pretty sad and pretty scary sometimes. So it's kind of nice to just like take a picture of things in our world that are really beautiful, and make it look happy.
Mhm. Yeah, I know you take some photographs of your sister sometimes and use her as a subject. Do you direct her and stuff, or do you take, or when you're taking pictures of any people, do you direct them, or do you mostly take kind of candid shots?
Yeah, I take a lot of pictures of my sister. Whether she likes it or not is a different question. But yeah, I mean, I feel like at this point she's kind of used to me shoving a camera in her face, so she's kind of like mastered the poses that I like her to do. But with others, I feel like I kind of help along. Like if they do something that makes them feel comfortable, then maybe it looks awkward on the camera or something. Like I might be like, okay, tilt your head a little bit more. But for the most part, I think I like to do like more candids and just like, yeah.
Also, where is that abandoned building that you took the photographs of?
Oh yeah, so that's at this abandoned Maryland gold mine in Potomac. I didn't even know it existed. I had to do all this research for the project. But yeah, it's just like hidden in this like little hiking trail, and I don't think you're really supposed to go in there, but um, yeah.
Very cool. Okay, we'll have to see if we can find it. Um, Also, I was wondering, since you're not going to school in person right now, has it been hard to, keep up with art and photography, or have you been able to find things to take photographs of yourself or motivate yourself to do that?
Yeah, so I'm not taking a photography class this year anyway. I'm doing yearbook. So I think yes, it has been hard. Um, to kind of motivate and like pick a specific thing to take a picture of, because in school, like, it is very specific, and it's like, okay, go do this right now. You have like 10 days to do it. If you don't do it, you get a bad grade. But like, if I don't take photos for 6 months, no one will know. So yes, it's been pretty hard to motivate, but I feel like with the fall colors and stuff, I've been more motivated because it looks very pretty outside right now. But as like winter hits and it gets kind of gloomy, I think I'll have even more trouble motivating. Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to share, or any other photographs that you want to share on your screen?
Oh, sure. I'll share my screen one more time. I'll just share the photos that won the awards. So this is one of them. That's my sister. This is at Strathmore. This won a silver key with the Scholastic Art Awards. And this was like my first, like, one of my first, like, what I feel like was like really good photos. And then this one also won. Oh, and that one of the diamonds is on display at the museum. And this one is of like a fair swing, and I really edited it a lot. I'm just kind of playing around with Photoshop, but I think it looks really cool, and I really like how detailed it is. And oh, this is a picture, one of my favorite nature pictures I've taken. I really just like how like zoomed in and detailed it is, and this one is also on display at the museum, I think. Oh, and this one is also a cool nature one that I like. And oh, nope, there's one more. This one is also of my sister, so yeah.
That's great. I love all of them. I really love the diamond one, especially.
Thank you.
Great photo. Yeah, so thank you so much, Grace. That was great. And yeah, if anyone has questions that come up, continue writing them in the chat. But in the meantime, up next is Daria Parsa. All right.
Hello. So I'm Daria, and I'm a recent graduate from the University of Maryland, College Park, where I studied studio art and art history. And I work primarily with oil paint and chalk pastel or charcoal, but I also really like working in a lot of other mediums like printmaking or photography. And usually my work has something to do with nature or the natural world, or oftentimes anatomy. And recently I started a series inspired by, well, as a response to COVID and quarantine. And it's a series of abstract works inspired by things that I've seen in nature. So some of these are featured in the Makers Among Us show, and then other ones are behind me. So I have, these are in progress. I'll show them a little bit closer up. One second. Oh boy. All right, so they're big, but so that one was inspired by these kind of twisting branches and trees that I had seen while going on a walk in Elk Neck State Park. And I'll get the other one. And then this one was actually kind of drew from barnacles that I'd seen on a trip in Maine. So those ones are still very much in progress, especially the one over here. Yes, they're both oils. Sorry, someone asked if they were oils. They're oils. And this one over here, I'm kind of trying to decide if I'm done with it or not, but it's on hold for the moment anyway. If anyone has any thoughts about it, if they're like, yeah, I know it's kind of hard to see here through Zoom, but if anyone's like, oh, that's totally not done, let me know. Or if they think it's done, also let me know. And then I wanted to share my screen for those of you who maybe have not been able to make it to the show. Let's see if it'll load. All right, these are the ones that are in the show currently. So there's this one, which is in chalk pastels, and these two oil paintings. And these ones are definitely smaller than these two. But these were the earlier works in the series. So before starting this series, I had mostly worked representationally, but kind of when quarantine first started and I was suddenly like finishing my last semester online, I had a lot of trouble focusing on the works that I had been doing before. So I wanted to switch things up and try something abstract. And the idea for the series actually first occurred to me while I was on a walk on the beach by the Chesapeake. And I saw these rocks that had formed from hardened clay. And they had all these very vibrant colors, a lot of reds, oranges, and even just grays and blues. And they were all kind of mixed together. And I thought, when I saw it, I thought this would make a great artwork. So from then on the many quarantine walks I went on, I started taking photos of anything that caught my attention or inspired me, and then tried to make works based on those. And the goal was to make paintings or drawings that are abstract and can stand on their own, but are still reminiscent of the imagery that they draw from. And I think that this shift to abstract as well as to focusing on nature helped me to take a step back and also at the same time to be more present in the moment and kind of tune other things out. And I also think it's really important right now to think about nature and the natural world. We often see nature being turned into some sort of almost political weapon, but nature isn't political. It's not something that's wrapped up in the social constructs or societies that we've created for ourselves. It's something that we can all connect with, that we can all appreciate, and most importantly, it's something that we all need. I think that nature can encourage people to step outside of themselves and can bring out human kindness, compassion, and understanding. And I also want to continue working with this series, and as it develops, I'd like to delve a little bit more into the ways in which we do make nature something political and the way that we sometimes use it to stereotype or to promote Western superiority. So that's the whole thing about all my paintings. I'd also like to talk a little bit about some of my photography, since that was also a part of the show. And let's see, I'm gonna share my screen again. Oh, going to the wrong thing. Anyway, we're going back through. These are some of my previous works that were more representational. I'm not going to talk much about them, but if you have questions about them, feel free to ask. I might not see them right now because I'm sharing my screen, but I'll get to them eventually. So the photos that were included in the Makers Among Us show were from Forest Haven, which is an abandoned psychiatric institution in Laurel. So for anyone who's local, it's like right near Sandy Spring. And I had started becoming interested in abandonments about 5 years ago. I thought they were just really interesting and beautiful places, and I really wanted to photograph them. And Forest Haven was one of the first places that I'd been to, and since then I've been there countless times. So a little bit about Forest Haven, because I think it has a really fascinating history. So it opened in 1925 as a progressive institution that was aimed at teaching usable skills to people with mental disabilities. But in the 1960s, the budget was cut drastically, which led to the cancellation of recreational programs, the reduction of staff, hiring of unqualified employees, and at the same time, the population of like people kept getting put into Forest Haven, so there was a lot of overpopulation. And many of the residents didn't actually belong there. In the 70s, the director of the asylum actually stated that he estimated about 400 of the people there didn't belong there, and that them being in Forest Haven only served to worsen their conditions. Finally, in the mid-70s, some of the families of patients there started a lawsuit against Forest Haven for all of the abuse and neglect that they were committing. And 2 years later, the court actually ordered Forest Haven to close, but it wasn't until 13 years after that that the institution actually shut its doors for good. And so this inhumane treatment of patients was unfortunately not something unique to Forest Haven, but it was prevalent in many psychiatric institutions throughout history. And so today, almost 30 years after it shut down, Forest Haven remains largely intact. A lot of the original equipment and even paperwork is still there today. And it's become a very popular spot for people who are looking for an adventure, or other times for vandalism, as you probably saw the graffiti in the photos. And, all right, I'm gonna stop sharing. Oh my gosh, lots of questions. All right. I'll get to Mariah's question in a second. But so something that also drew me to abandoned places was their unique kind of surreal and serene atmosphere. Because when you're in them, it's almost like stepping into another world and everything else kind of disappears. And you start thinking about what this place would have been like before, and about all the people whose lives were impacted by it. And you start thinking about how all of those people had led entire lives. They all had their own stories, each as vivid and unique as your own. And you're confronted with the smallness of each of us in the face of the world. But as these places disappear, they take their histories with them. I've been to Forest Haven numerous times over the last 5 or so years, and I've seen it continue to break down and change each time I go. Sometimes it's due to human causes, like people set fires or people sometimes steal things, and other times it's natural. And then, of course, there's also the threat of, at any time, these places being torn down for rebuilding. So by photographing these places, I want to share the unique beauty of abandonments with other people, as well as honor the memories of these places and the countless people whose lives were affected by them. All right, I'll get to some questions. So Mariah said, does your photography influence your drawing and painting, or vice versa, or do they operate separately? I think, well, in terms of photographing abandonments specifically, I think they're mostly separate, but I still find myself drawn to similar things. Like, something about abandoned places that always interested me was, at least visually interested me, was how they're kind of taken back by nature. And then I also explore themes relating to nature in my paintings. As far as other photography not related to abandoned places, I would say they're mostly separate, but there's still some overlap just in terms of what I'm drawn to or what I like to take pictures of or like to paint. And then Isaac asked, do you take any philosophical inspiration from naturalists such as Henry Thoreau or Ralph Waldo Emerson? Well, that's a great question. I guess no, because I don't totally know what their philosophies are. But possibly, if I knew more about it, I would find some connections. And I should look into it. I will. Great question.
I was wondering, when you're like on a walk outside, are you initially more drawn to patterns or to color in nature? Like, what catches your eye as something that you want to paint?
I think more the patterns and not really the colors, although I do draw from the colors. I think it's usually more of like the patterns, like with the barnacles, like the way that they all form together and they're all like mushed up together, or the branches, the way that they're all kind of twisting and squiggly. Yeah.
Are these all this new series, the kind of abstract nature paintings, are they all actually realistic? Like, you take a photograph and zoom in and try to paint it exactly as you see it, or are they abstract?
More abstracted. I do try to keep it somewhat related to what it was originally based on, because I do want people to get some idea of what it might have been based on, or it doesn't even have to be like that thing exactly, because I think what's also been interesting when I started doing this was just thinking about all the similarities in different things in nature, but how like structurally they might be similar. Or once you get kind of abstract, there's a lot of things that they have in common. So I might look at that and be like, oh yeah, I know it was based off of barnacles, but someone might think it looks like cells or rocks or something else. Yeah. Isaac asked, if I'm drawn more to the formal physical qualities of my works or their content and ideas. I think, I don't know. I guess both, really. I'm not sure which one more. Maybe for paintings, I think maybe more for the content. I think for like photography, I tend to focus more on formal qualities like composition or balance and that kind of stuff. And I think for drawing, maybe I also focus a little bit more on the formal stuff.
I know you've also photographed a couple of other places that are abandoned places. So I was wondering, because Forest Haven is such an interesting story. Yeah, like how did you find the other ones, or where were they, and what drew you to those locations?
Yeah, so Forest Haven was the first place I went to, and I had seen other photographers on Instagram who took pictures of abandonments and decided that I really wanted to do that. So I just Googled abandoned places in Maryland, and that was like one of the big ones that comes up. And then some of the other places I went to actually were in New Orleans because I was visiting a family member, and so I really wanted to go to, there's a Six Flags that's abandoned in New Orleans, and I had seen that like years before I went there and just thought it was like the coolest thing ever. So I knew I wanted to go there. And then the other places I went in New Orleans were another amusement park and a power plant. And those were at the suggestions of others. Like when I got there, people were like, oh, you could go here. And so I went there.
Have they typically been like open, or there are ways to just walk in, or
It depends on the place. Technically it's not legal to go into any of them, but most of the time a lot of places don't have much security, or you can usually find out online because people will have posted about how they got in or if there's security or not. The closest run-in I had was actually at Six Flags in New Orleans, where we had heard that they had ramped up security, so we took extra precautions and we actually got there at 4 a.m. to try and avoid any possible security. And we like waded through basically a marsh to like get in through the back entrance. And so we got there and there was like no sign of anyone. And then all of a sudden around 7 a.m., I started hearing like engine sounds, like car sounds. And I was trying to figure out whether they were coming from the park or from the highway next to us, but they started getting louder. So I was like, that's definitely here. And so I told the person I was with, and we just like darted off into like opposite directions. And I was like peering through the window of one of the buildings and just watching as like a whole just like line of cars drive past us. And then after that, every couple of minutes, these like security cars and construction vehicles would drive by. So we had to like dart back and forth from like building to building until we could get to the exit. And it was like something out of a video game or a movie, but it was kind of terrifying in the moment, but it's hilarious now. So it's great. But we didn't get caught. It was good.
Yeah, well, we're happy you made it out and with photos to show for it, evidence.
Thank you. Yes, yes.
Yeah, and clearly you're very committed to your art, waking up at 4 a.m.
Yeah, that was not fun.
Mhm. All right. Well, do you have anything else you want to share? Does anyone else have any questions for any of the artists? Feel free to speak now or write it in the chat. But it was really, really interesting to hear and see some of your work in the different series that you do, and also how it's transformed and evolved, especially since coronavirus and how that's affected your artwork. Yeah, in very interesting ways. So yeah, if no one else has any questions or anything they want to share, thank you to everyone who came tonight. And I'm so happy and grateful to these 3 artists and the others who are featured in the exhibit for sharing their artwork and telling us a little bit more about themselves. They're all so intelligent and also creative and have such interesting, unique perspectives. So if you haven't already, you should come see the exhibit at the Sandy Spring Museum. You can come tomorrow, is a Friday, so it will be open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. But also for the next couple of Fridays afterwards. So thank you so much for joining us, and hope you have a good rest of the night.
Thank you, Gabby, and to all the other artists. And don't forget, session 2 of Show and Tell is going to be Tuesday night. So you can go on our website and sign up to hear from the other artists from Makers Among Us.